Kia ora. I'm Rosey Nathan. I am the Head of Careers Program and Partnerships at the Blues Charitable Trust and Principal and Clarity Partner at Intent Plus Purpose. And it is a pleasure to be here today with Mark to talk about board performance and composition.
Hi, welcome to Governance Bites. My name is Mark Banicevich, and as you just heard, again, I have the pleasure of spending time with Rosey Nathan. Rosey, thank you very much for your time.
It's so great to be here.
You do a lot of work in this space around skills matrices and recruiting for boards, so it'll be a great conversation with you on this one. My first question for you, when boards underperform, is it usually a capability problem, a behavioural problem, or a leadership problem?
Yeah, I mean, it usually is a problem with relationship on the board and how the information is being used and how decisions are being made. So there can be lots of, I think where the biggest difficulties I've seen across boards is where there's repeating cycles and nothing actually gets moved forward.
Right.
So part of that is behavioural because you don't necessarily have a person in chair that is strong enough to move decisions forward or to get to the right information. And so you keep being pulled into this vortex. So that underperformance comes from repetition and no forward motion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What warning signs tell you that a board is no longer fit for purpose, even if it's meeting all its formal obligations?
Yeah. So on paper, I think part of it is feel. You genuinely know when a board is performing well together, and even if there is some of that tension for challenge, you can see that that's happening in a positive way versus something that is not going to benefit both the board or the organisation. So warning signs are really about how all of that communication is happening on the board and outside of the board and the relationship they have with senior leadership, and kind of are they asking for information or are they asking the questions that are really going to benefit the objectives and the strategy of where you're moving forward, or is it just wasting time?
Yes.
So yeah, not a lot of boards are doing that, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Right? You get these challenges that happen in ways that aren't constructive.
Some of what you were talking about there, as an observer inside the boardroom, that would become quite obvious. If you're on that board, it's often quite hard to elevate yourself above what's going on from the day to day and reflect on what's going on.
Yeah.
So if you were being asked to evaluate and you weren't in the boardroom, are there things that you could identify from paperwork or from...
Yeah, I don't know if from paperwork. I think, and I talk to a few people that reach that space and they need an external perspective. So having, most people on boards have a great network of other people that are exceptional either in boards themselves or in leadership. I do a bit of mentoring in that space where people might want to throw around some ideas of what they're facing or what they're feeling, and get a completely unbiased view of what that looks like. Yeah, I think just seeking that external
sort of
first.
Through conversations with the directors that you'd understand, okay, maybe this isn't working the way it should be working.
Yeah. And what are they saying? So when I've held stakeholder interviews, what are they saying to me that I know they're not saying in the room?
Yeah.
So being able to provide those reports back is, it's something that boards should probably be doing more regularly, but don't really explore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. How has the chair's role shifted as boards deal with greater complexity, with greater scrutiny, with greater pace, as we've talked about in an earlier conversation?
Yeah. So it's obviously compliance, that's important, but they really are just setting direction and ensuring that where they are going and the work that the entire board is doing is aligning and is moving forward. So as I said earlier, I think that this forward motion across all of when I think about everything that's on the plate for a board and what they have to consider, it's about prioritization. So can they prioritise for the board so that they can focus on what's really important and get all the energy there to move those big rocks off the sheet or into the next phase and make sure the entirety of the board is behind them. So I think it's, prioritisation in a format that moves with the pace that's happening within the business.
Yes. Okay. A slight shift in topic now around future directors. How early should organisations be identifying and developing potential future directors?
Yeah, I've been an advocate about getting people as young as teenagers to be board observers for quite some time. And I've spoke at the Institute of Directors on this on a panel. And just being able to have that exposure, you have this level of individual who has a completely new perspective, not just on the board, but on the world, and a completely different frame of reference for what's important to them. And as they get more comfortable in a boardroom, they begin to share in ways that become more and more relevant to the board and to the organisation. So having, advisory or emerging board members that can come in on occasion, obviously not derail every board meeting, but to really allow them that observation to see what's happening and to become comfortable in it. Because as we know from so many fields, if you have exposure and you have learning by osmosis, that is the best way that somebody can then bring their whole authentic self, because they're not trying to impress when they immediately get in that room as a
they already have that experience and they've got the comfort with the scenario, and then they can just, as you say, be themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What capabilities will boards need more of in 5 to 10 years that are currently underrepresented in boards? Yeah,
I mean, I'm huge on diversity. So the diversity that is across an audience of an organisation, just to ensure that you're hearing where your levels of audience are sitting in the marketplace. There's still lots of assumptions made, and there's quite a disconnect between exactly who every audience is and how that's represented from a board perspective. So I think we can allow for a lot of different voices in a board. We really can.
And the work that you're doing with skills matrices, are there any skills that are creeping up on those matrices that haven't been there before, and you think that will appear in the next few years? So actually we really need to have the skill set on the board.
I mean, definitely soft skills is just an awareness of there's not as many that are focused completely in that development area. So yes, HR has always been important, but what about the performance and development piece? How are we ensuring that we're uplifting that across the organisation with our people? Obviously tech, which we talked about in the first episode, that's an area that requires an amount of understanding where that's relevant to the organisation, but just continuing to understand what's happening in the challenges within a marketplace where you're operating. So we have seen businesses that have turned around in positive and negative ways in a pretty prompt fashion if they don't see the runway of that occurring. So, those that have a really good idea of where the market's heading and then how they can help the organisation. Foresight.
What does effective board level mentoring look like in practice?
It depends on who, like the seniority of the people that are being mentored as well. Because you don't want this to be a one-way street, and that is what naturally tends to occur. And I think that's it can happen in normal professional relationships as well, is that you can defer to somebody that has more experience and more knowledge. But a great board mentor, is able to step back out of that and keep being curious about what the direction should be and what the person needs, and offer support and perspective, but not dampen creativity and opportunity, because some of those new areas into innovation can get stifled at that point.
Okay. Who should own the onboarding and development of new directors? The chair, senior directors, the whole board, the company secretary? Who owns that? Not everybody has a great process, as we know. I think the first step is developing a process for what are the things that should happen. I've been on a couple of boards without a process at all. It's like, here's your first meeting. Welcome to the meeting.
And you're okay.
That was induction.
And there is also just some self-drive. So as a new board member, asking the questions of, what is the process and what do I need to know and how do I get to understand this business better and my board better? And it's a time it's a timing thing with schedules.
Yes.
But if you can do this and have everybody on the board available for at least 1 or 2 sessions, short sessions a year, where they have a conversation directly on, the skills that are on the board. Does everybody feel really comfortable already with where we're at? And through the induction piece, do our processes need to change with that, instead of it being something fixed and in the background, and then even doesn't get pulled out when there is a new board member
So not
joining.
a one-size-fits-all box, and something that's a little bit flexible and adaptable that everyone gets involved in. And as you say, very important for a director entering the board to know what they should be demanding from an induction, and making sure that stuff's in place, and asking the questions and
putting time frames in place, because that's the thing. You can have the conversation and ask the questions, but unless you say, okay, well, by next board meeting I need to have completed this, who will support me?
Yes.
Or what do we do to get that process happening? And has nobody else on this board done this? Then maybe we should do that together. So putting in those milestones.
Great. Yes. I'll need a checklist at some point of
there
that
you
should
go.
entail. Are board evaluations genuinely improving performance, or have they become a compliance exercise?
Depends on the board. It depends on the confidence of the chair. I think some of them are fantastic. I've seen really great, absolutely fantastic and formal versions of that, from an individual board member evaluation with chair through to really formal, great process, not very effective, because it felt very much just like checkboxing.
Yeah, right.
So, okay, you meet this minimum requirement, but there wasn't a lot of, again, two-way street. So, what are the observations that we're missing? What is it that you're feeling about this? How do we improve and lift our tide together? I think they're a great opportunity if used the right way.
Right, so it comes down to the attitude. If you're going into a board evaluation saying, oh, it's been 12 months, we've got to do our evaluation, then you're probably not going to get enough out of it. But if you go into it thinking, okay, where are the opportunities for improvement? Where have we slipped? What are we doing really well? What can we learn from this, and how can we improve? Then you're going to get some great value out of your evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely.
What single change would most improve board effectiveness over the next decade?
Gosh, the next decade. Who knows what the next decade shall hold?
Let's say the next 6 months, shall we? It's moving so quickly.
I think that challenge in communication, which is great on a lot of boards, but being really structured with it alongside the prioritisation. So the single change is just ensuring everybody has the clarity of the intent for what they need to deliver, what's important, when it's important by. And I know that's lots of people are already doing that, but honestly, lots of boards really aren't.
Yes.
So just focusing on that, I think, brings a lot of clarity for a board.
Great. Thank you. I've got one final question for you to wrap us up. What's the best governance advice you've received? To really deeply consider why you're getting on that board, what you're doing there, and what you can add in terms of the value. So having that assessment and understanding your position and kind of getting to meet the board before you take those steps is an important one. And I'm not sure that everybody does that in the right way. There's lots of want and the opportunity to join boards, but really understand your own why first. Okay, Rosey, that's been great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Let's do it again.
Yes.
See you next episode. Thank you for watching this episode of Governance Bites. We have more episodes on YouTube and your favourite podcast channel, where I interview directors and experts on various topics relating to boards of directors and governance. We'd love to see you back, and please like, subscribe, and share the videos and podcasts.